In a faraway land where the golden sun kissed the wide plains and the winds carried whispers of old stories, there was a small village named Karungi. The people of Karungi were strong and hardworking, but they lived in fear of one thing: drought. Their lives depended on the rains, for without water, their crops withered, their animals grew weak, and hunger followed like a shadow. One year, the rains did not come. The villagers waited and prayed, watching the sky each day for signs of dark clouds. But none came. The rivers shrank into narrow streams, and the wells dried up. The elders gathered, their faces etched with worry, and spoke of the hardships ahead. The people tried to survive, sharing what little they had, but soon the earth turned to dust, and the cattle lay weak under the unforgiving sun. In this village lived a girl named Amani. She was different from the others, for she carried a strange gift. She could understand the language of animals. From the time she was a child, she would watch the birds, the insects, and the beasts of the land, and somehow she knew their thoughts and feelings. The villagers thought it was nonsense. They laughed at her when she spoke of the wisdom of the ants or the secrets of the wind. Even her parents, though kind, wished she would not speak of such things. As the drought worsened, Amani felt the pain of the land deep within her heart. The trees groaned in thirst, the birds sang of their suffering, and the lions, kings of the savannah, grew restless with hunger. One night she sat outside staring at the full moon. The land was silent, and in that silence she heard a voice, not from a human, but from the great creatures of the wild. The lions were calling. She followed the call into the vast plains. Though she was small, her steps were sure, for she knew no fear of the animals. They had always been her friends. She walked for hours until she reached a rocky outcrop where a pride of lions lay. Their golden eyes glowed in the darkness, and their massive bodies rested against the cool earth. The leader, an old lion with a mane like fire, turned his gaze to her. She understood his sorrow. The drought had affected them too. Prey was scarce, and the rivers where they once drank were now dry beds of cracked earth. The lion told her of a secret, one passed down through generations of lions. Beyond the hills in a hidden valley, there was a sacred spring, an ancient source of water that had never dried. Few knew of it, for it was guarded by the spirits of the land. The lions had once drunk from its depths, but men had grown fearful of its power and had forgotten its location. Now, with the village and the wild creatures suffering, Amani knew she had to find it. She thanked the lions and set off before dawn. The journey was long and harsh. The sun blazed above her, the dry wind stung her skin, and her feet ached as she walked across the barren land. Yet she did not stop. She listened to the whispers of the insects in the sand, the calls of the distant birds, and the rustling of the dry grass. Each voice guided her, telling her where to go, warning her of dangers, leading her closer to the hidden spring. Days passed and Amani grew weak, but she would not give up. She climbed steep hills, crossed dry riverbeds, and pushed through thorny bushes. At last, she reached the valley the lions had spoken of. It was unlike anything she had seen before. While the rest of the land was parched, this valley was alive with green. Trees swayed gently, and in the middle, a clear spring bubbled from the earth, its waters cool and endless. Amani knelt by the spring and wept with relief. She drank deeply, feeling life return to her body. She knew she could not keep this place a secret. She had to bring the water to her people. But how? She saw the solution in the land itself. Using the large leaves of the trees and the dried vines, she wove a great pouch and filled it with water. She carried it carefully as she made the long journey back home. The weight of the water slowed her down, but she did not falter. The thought of her thirsty village gave her strength. When she returned, the villagers were shocked to see her alive. She had been gone for many days, and they had feared the worst. But when they saw the pouch filled with fresh water, their amazement turned to hope. She told them of the valley, of the spring, and of the lions who had guided her. Some doubted, but many believed. Together they followed her back to the valley, bringing pots, gourds, and tools to build a path that would bring the water home. With time, they created a channel from the spring to the village. Water flowed once more, the land turned green, and the people rejoiced. Amani was no longer laughed at. The elders now called her wise, and the children listened to her stories with wonder. The lions, too, came to drink from the spring once more, and the people no longer feared them. Instead, they saw them as part of the land, as guardians of an ancient truth. Amani had proven that wisdom does not always come from the oldest or the strongest, but from those who listen, to the land, to the animals, and to the whispers of nature. She had shown that courage is not in fighting, but in understanding, and that those who seek harmony will always find a way to survive. Moral of the story. The story of Amani teaches us that true wisdom comes from listening, not just to people, but to the world around us. Sometimes the answers to our greatest problems are hidden in nature, waiting to be heard. We also learn that courage is not about strength or power, but about perseverance, kindness, and a willingness to trust the unknown. Amani's journey reminds us that every voice, no matter how small, holds value, and those who respect the balance of nature will always find a way forward.